keep your arms and feet inside the train at all times. Our trusted train engineer will be taking you through various beautiful settings that will leave you with a brief insight of culture and history in Belize. Let's get rolling. Welcome to the Belize Rainforest. We are very fortunate in Belize to have almost 1 million acres of rainforest and wetlands under different types of conservation management. This is important for two main reasons. Firstly, it will be there for future generations to enjoy, and secondly, thousands of insects, birds, reptiles, animals, and many varieties of trees and plant life have a safe place to call home. Belize has a large variety of ecosystems, making our country very unique. For generations, these precious ecosystems have provided food, water, building materials, and medicine for our people. Belize also has an extensive network of cave systems. Over 150 miles of caves have been mapped, with many more still to be explored. One of these cave systems, known as OTN, which is short for According to the Chiclet Camp, has been named one of the most sacred caves in the world by the National Geographic. Our next stop is a Maya cave.
The Maya civilization was a very strong culture that rose to its climax and descended to its collapse in a period of 4,000 years, from 2500 BC to 1500 AD. To your left is a temple where priests and the elite would live. To your right is a typical kitchen structure and another for sleeping. This is where the general population would live. The Maya domesticated plants. Corn was the base of most of their food. They raised stingless honeybees and traded cotton, honey, flint, salt, feathers, and jade. The Maya developed their own calendar using advanced astronomy and mathematics. The ancient Maya believed that their universe consisted of three layers. The water underworld was Xibalbá, the place of fright. In the middle was earth, four-sided and floating in an ancient sea as if on the back of a turtle or crocodile. On top was the heavens, where Hunab-Ku was the supreme god with no form or face, who along with many gods took care of the people on earth. Connecting these three layers was the giant saber tree, the sacred tree of the Maya. By 300 AD, the classic period was in full swing. This was the height of the Maya civilization, and the size and number of the large temples and palaces grew. It is estimated that up to 2 million Maya people lived in Belize during the classic period. To your right is the early sugar industry. Sugarcane was introduced into the northern district of Corozal in 1848 by Mexican immigrants fleeing the caste war, and was grown in small amounts for sugarcane, rapadura, and molasses. However, it wasn't until the arrival of the American Confederates in southern Belize in 1865 that this industry took off. This sugar mill on display on your right was made in Louisiana and brought in by the Confederates. East Indian indentured laborers were brought in to work on these farms and would remain settled to become one of the major ethnic groups in southern Belize, referred to as Kuli Indian. Today, the industry is comprised of two big factories, one in the north and the other in the west of Belize. Over 5,000 independent farming families depend on this industry. To your left is the Chiclet Camp in the jungle with real sapodilla trees. Charlie the Chiclero is tapping the tree for its sap. Chewing gum originated from the sapodilla tree. This large tropical tree grows throughout the northern lowlands and central Belize. The life of a chiclero was tough as they worked in remote jungle locations. Insect bites, encounters with poisonous snakes, and other dangerous animals were a daily occurrence. Falling from trees was common, and getting to a hospital quickly was near impossible. A chiclero like Charlie here would climb to the top of the tree using spikes on his feet, a rope around his waist, and a machete in his hand. Once on top, he would proceed to make slanting gashes into the bark, working his way to the bottom of the tree. The sap would drain to the bottom, where a wax-lined bag would collect it. Once a large amount was collected, it would be cooked in huge iron pots, then poured into wooden molds that were sized to produce 25-pound blocks of chiclet. These blocks would be shipped to Wrigley Company, Chicago, Illinois, for further processing into delicious chewing gum, such as Juicy Fruit and Wrigley's Spearmint Gum. The cutting of logs took place in the dry season. Gangs of up to 150 men would go inside the jungle and set up camps. Huntsmen would locate the premium timber, then axemen like Joe to your left would cut it down. To cut above the wide buttress roots, a platform called a barbecue was built. Once a tree was felled, they were loaded onto trailers and were then pulled by oxen trains or steam tractor to the river's edge. When the rainy season began, the rivers would rise and float all the logs down to Belize City. Closer to the city, the logs would be chained together from one side of the river to the other. This was called a boom. The boom kept the logs from going out into the sea. When the ships arrived, their quota was released for loading. Most of our logs went to England. Our national tree, the mahogany tree, was the most sought after wood, as it was beautiful in color and was easy to work with carpentry tools of the day. Wood used for local construction were cut using sawmills and the many tools displayed to your right. Belize is very lucky to have a forestry department that manages our timber resources to ensure sustainability.
We are now in a typical Garifuna setting next to the sea. The Garifuna are descendants of West African, Central African island Carib, and Arawak people. They arrived in the early 19th century, settling on the southern coast of Belize. The drum is an integral part of the culture. Their music, called punta, would become the nationally recognized music of Belize. The costume above the stairs is for the Jankano dance ceremony that is celebrated on the last Sunday of the year. The Garifuna culture always resisted slavery, and the Jankano dance embodies that resistance. Traditionally, Garifuna foods are based on ground foods, vegetables, and marine produce. However, the single most important food is cassava, also known as yuca. The process of making cassava bread is arguably the most important tradition practiced by the Garifuna people. We celebrate Garifuna Settlement Day on the 19th of November. This national holiday was founded by Thomas Vincent Tramos, who was a visionary leader for the Garifuna people.
We are now on North Front Street, Belize City, circa 1910, when Belize was a colony of England. Ships coming for logwood, sugar, chicle, or logs would bring many European and North American products to ballast these large sailing vessels, and they would load them with bricks, which they sold in Belize. Many buildings in Belize are built with red bricks, hundreds of years old. Through the peaceful efforts of the father of our nation, the Right Honorable George Hill Wright, Belize achieved independence from England on the 21st of September, 1981.